sprout, right? Why would we do sprouts instead of something else? The sprouts are actually much more nutritious than vegetables. When they're in the sprout stage, they're actually 20% more vitamins and minerals, amino acids and protein than they are when they're fully grown. In particular, broccoli, which has sulforaphane, which is a very strong anti-carcinogenic. It's about, when they did tests on rats, the rats were 80% more prone to cancer from eating broccoli sprouts than the ones that weren't. And broccoli sprouts have more of this sort of sulforaphane than the full-grown plants. You can grow the sprouts in about 3 days, but it takes about 55 to 75 days to grow a full plant of broccoli. So sprouting makes a lot of sense as far as environmental and for health reasons. I like to sprout because I like to know exactly what's in my food. I like to know what's been watering it, and I like to know where I got the seeds to grow the food that I grow. You know, and I can do this right in a space about this big. And this is what I would do for salad. And if I was making salad, this is what I use for my lettuce. And then I don't have them because they're kind of very tender and I drive them back and forth. But I can have alfalfa sprouts, broccoli sprouts. There's all different kinds of sprouts that I can have, and I have complete control of what I'm eating. These actually have a lot of protein in them. People talk about the vegetarian diet not having protein. Sprouts has a lot of protein. It's very, very good for you. And the protein is in amino acids, it broke it down into amino acids that are very easy for your body to assimilate. So it's actually a very assimilatable protein. They're stable food now. I'm told you can freeze them and you can dry them and they still retain their vegetables, but I've never tried it myself. But it's a stable food, just like you would any other things that you would dry, like fruits and vegetables that you would dry. And they're high energy foods because they, the sugars in them, the starches, are converted to simple sugars. So they're high energy food. It's simple, easy to digest sugar. So it's very, very high energy food. And that's why I like sprouting. And then I talk about some of the seeds. There's 2 types of seeds that I basically use, and one is for greens. These are my lettuce. These are microgreens here. And then these are sprouts. These are grown sprouts. Now, the microgreens need a lot more light than sprouts. Sprouts you can grow in a window with under a light like a 110 watt bulb. You know, just any light in your house. So, and I grow the sprouts in jars. You can also grow the sprouts in bags. These are bags from Sprout Man. He sends me free bags because I buy seeds from him. And these are made out of hemp. These types of bags, this is what I use when I'm backpacking. When I'm backpacking, when I do a lot of backpacking in the Sierras, I like fresh vegetables, and there's nothing to eat up there, especially if you're climbing mountains and you base camp at 10,000 feet. There's no fresh vegetables. So this bag, I don't use them unless I'm camping. They're very easy to use now. When you're sprouting in a bag, you probably don't want to sprout alfalfa or clover. You can, but it'll get meshed in with the fabric of the bag sometimes, and you know it's a little harder to clean the bag out. But it's not that big a deal. Good sprouts to sprout in the bag are. These are protein sprouts, this is pea sprouts, garbanzos, adukis, and mung beans. So these are great for sprouting in bags when you're in the backpacking or camping. You can do this right while in your campsite. Especially if you're sitting next to
What was the other one?
This is adukis, garbanzos, mung beans, and green peas. And this is the Protein Powerhouse Sprouting Blend. This is from Handy Pantry. You'll see these in stores around here. Other ones that are good are lentils. This is a mix of lentil sprouts here. This is great for sprouting in bags. This is blue French lentils, red lentils, and regular green lentils, like regular lentil soup. And these are also great for sprouting in bags. It's really easy. You just toss the bag. You take about maybe two tablespoons, maybe 3 tablespoons of seeds, and I'll fill up the bag. Good way to sprout that. When they're all sprouted, I take it, put it in the bag, tie a little piece of fishing line on, and drop it in the creek, and let it sit there overnight. You want to soak them for about 8 hours. Some things more, but generally about 8 hours is good, unless you're doing like buckwheat and you're getting ready for microgreens and you want to sprout them. You want to soak them for about 12 hours. But as a rule of thumb, before I go to bed, I put them in the bag, toss them in the creek, and when I wake up in the morning, I pull them out. And now I just want to keep them wet. So you just hang them up against on a tree and just keep them wet every 8 hours or so, or 6 hours, depending on how hot it is. Drop them in the creek, let them get wet again, hang it up, and after about 3 or 4 days, they'll start to sprout. And just about the time you start to see just a tiny bit of a green leaf on them, then they're ready to eat at that point. And they're just like if you would cook them, you know, they'll be just like cooked. You can make hummus with them. If you do garbanzo beans and you do them in a bag like this, you can make hummus out of it. You know, smash them up and make hummus. So that's the first way. That's the first type of sprouting that I do is in bags, and that I usually do when I'm traveling. You know, and I can do that and hang it up in the back of my pickup truck in the cab of my pickup truck, and I can have fresh sprouts and greens. The other type of sprouting I do is in jars, and this is really the way I've always done it. I learned how to do this from Ann Wigmore back in late 70s or early 80s. She's the one that began the sprouting revolution at a place called the Hippocrates Institute in Boston, and that's where I went and learned sprouting from Ann. Back then, she says you just get a mason jar and a screen and a rubber band and just drop them in there. A jar about this size is about 2 tablespoons of sprouts. You want to put about 2 tablespoons of this, and you'll get this full jar full of sprouts. And I think there are about 8 ounces of alfalfas, or maybe about $8 or $10, so it's much cheaper than buying them at the store. And when you buy them at the store, you'll notice how they're a little bit kind of gooey. Slimy. Yeah, slimy. Well, if you grow them yourself, they're actually crunchy. You know, they're not like that slimy stuff that you buy at the store. They have a crunch to them, and they have a nice taste to them. Because you grow them yourself, and if you take good care of them and watch them, they'll be fine. Did you have a question?
I do. How big is this jar?
This jar? What is this?
Is it a quart?
This looks like a quart.
More.
A quart and a half. These jars I bought these at the dollar store. You get 6 of them for about $11. And then I buy these screens. This screen here comes from the Handy Pantry people.
Where?
Handy Pantry. That is these people. You might see these labels in the health food store. This is Handy Pantry. These are a good place to get them. This is the Handy Pantry. Little flyers we'll have there. And there's handouts for the jar method that we're talking about right now here that you can take. And so, yeah, this costs about $3 for the lid. But you don't really have to, you can go maybe down to a fabric store. I don't know where you get like a fabric mosquito netting or something like that. You can just buy that.
Could you
put it on a band around
use
the top.
cheesecloth or something? Maybe cheesecloth?
Cheesecloth, yeah, cheesecloth is all right, but you got to watch it doesn't get moldy.
Okay.
So this is why the
All right.
plastic, but the holes in these, for me, should be just slightly bigger because they don't bring.
You can actually use bale material for like a wedding veil.
Yeah, that's what I used to use. We used to, when we sprouted in our health food store, I had two different kinds. I had one that was a fine one, that was kind of like mosquito netting, and then I had one that was more like a wedding veil. It was kind of like a hexagonal pattern, about not quite an 1/8 inch holes.
Like a crinoline.
Yeah, and so when I first had them in the seed stage, we would use those, and then in the second, when they got bigger, then I would move to a different type of screen. But you don't really have to, it's not that big a deal. I do them right to the finished steak in a jar like this.
Can you actually use screening like you put on your screen door or?
You could,
Yeah,
I don't see why not.
because I have some of them.
I don't know how rubber band, that's why the
You
mesh
use the
works
fabric,
good,
use
whatever.
fabric.
But, I mean, these lids are about $3. I use lids. So you just put them in, and you soak alfalfa for about 6 to 8 hours. Again, just overnight, just throw a little bit of the seeds in the